Hello, and welcome to a Couch Criminals review. I'm calling it a review, but really it's a discussion with myself and my two cats. I did not review the first two episodes, but I wanted to talk about this one. I felt compelled to talk about it because it's very exciting. As a Star Wars fan, I've been waiting for this moment since Revenge of the Sith. You probably know what I'm talking about. If you don't, spoilers for the Star Wars. It starts out with Obi-Wan calling out to Qui-Gon. He's hearing voices of key moments from his past, and this is being intercut with Vader being suited up. You hear Reva's line from last episode where she's sort of teasing Obi-Wan, and that vocal performance paired with the visual of, Vader's scarred and deformed body being suited up creates this really horrific and haunting atmosphere. It's Obi-Wan being taunted by this terrible thing he did to his former apprentice, basically his own family. And not only is this violent and cruel act remembered, but he knows that the one that he did it to is coming for him. He hears Qui-Gon's voice promise to train the boy. And as that line is being said, Obi-Wan is nervously shuffling his hands. And I love how well his guilt is conveyed through this. He doesn't just feel like he failed his surrogate son, but the closest thing he had to a father as well. Another layer of tragedy on top of Kenobi, which that's not the last we get of that this episode. Next, Vader is done being suited up. You see his silhouette in his Bacta room. He's talking to a hologram of Reva. You hear his voice for the first time in the episode, and it sounds perfect. It sounds perfect. In Rogue One, I remember feeling like it sounded a little wonky, and I'm not the first one to point this out, but people are saying that they possibly used that same technology that they used for Luke's voice in the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian for Vader. But for Vader, I think it works a lot better because his voice already sounds kind of robotic. James Earl Jones was credited, but so was Mark Hamill in those previous episodes. So just a little detail. I think it sounds great, whatever they're doing. We had the establishing shot of Mustafar. That's where he is right now, his castle on the lava planet where he got burned. The green screen is a little off, or the volume, whatever is outside those windows. But honestly, if you go back and you look at like Cloud City in the originals, and then you look at the skylines in the prequels, it's not exactly like it's out of step with those things. He tells Reva if she doesn't fail him in finding Kenobi, she can become the new Grand Inquisitor, and I think we all know where that's gonna go. So Obi-Wan fixes Lola, Leia's little droid, and briefly talks to Leia about the Force. Then they arrive on the Imperial mining planet. As Obi-Wan and Leia are talking, he sort of snaps at her, saying not all people are good. This mistrust he has speaks to obviously what he went through with Anakin, how he destroyed Obi-Wan's life, his way of life, and murdered children. He's so on edge, which is exemplified in the next thing that happens, where he has a vision or hallucination of Anakin, but it's Anakin as he knew him before he got burned, which also serves as a reminder that Obi-Wan has no idea what he looks like. So next we get the Inquisitor base, and it looks very expansive. I really like how big this show feels, and I think a lot of it is due to the amount of extras that they have. Like, I remember watching the Book of Boba Fett and thinking there are 10 people in this city. I never get that feeling here. It feels like a very populated galaxy. It just feels more interesting. It doesn't take me out of it. Yeah, the Inquisitors have a little... They're sort of fighting amongst themselves, and Reva says she spoke to Vader, and they need to send out the probes to find Kenobi. Meanwhile, Kenobi and Leia are going to the rendezvous point where they were supposed to meet the person who was going to take them off planet. When Obi-Wan sees that nobody is there, he immediately throws in the towel and responds to Leia's hopefulness by saying no one is coming, showing he just has this complete lack of patience and hope at this time in his life, which we will later see is not helping him. Leia tries to get them a ride, even though Obi-Wan told her not to speak. She's actually keeping her cool a lot more than him. He's really awkward. Leia lies to get them a ride, and this guy is really, really on board with the Empire. Like, he wears Empire pajamas to bed. I just want to mention how the actress that plays little Leia has such good line delivery. I wasn't sure about her in the first episode, particularly when she had that really verbose takedown of her cousin, and it just felt so fake. Just so not something a child would say. But in episode 2 and 3, I've been liking her a lot more. They have a tense ride with some stormtroopers. Obi-Wan kind of slips, calls her Leia, even though her alias at this point is supposed to be Luma. But then he makes a very good recovery by saying that Leia was her mother's name. And he looks into her face and says, sometimes I get confused, and when I look into her face, she reminds me of her mother a great deal. And when he said that, it was very convincing, because there's a little kernel of truth in there. You can see on Leia's face that she understands that there's truth here, and she calls him out on it after the stormtroopers leave, like, you did know my mom. She asks if he is her father, to which he says no, and she looks kind of disappointed, which made me sad. But what made me even more sad is Obi-Wan following it up, talking about his family, which we haven't heard about at all. I don't think in any of the live action or animated stuff, only a little bit in the books. Obi-Wan talks about barely remembering his father and mother, and how he had a brother that he wishes he remembered better. I don't think they're necessarily setting anything up with that, but then again, it's Disney and they own the rights to Kenobi. So I think they're gonna get their money's worth when it comes to that name. I don't doubt that we'll see little Kenobi Force users somewhere out there in the galaxy down the line. The Imperial sympathizer that is driving them around betrays them, obviously, and lets the stormtroopers check them out. The Imperial probe comes out and identifies Kenobi. Right after it identifies him and sends out the signal, he destroys it. He destroys, well, he blasts the troopers. One of them gets cut in half, not by him. Not on purpose anyways. Yeah, I just wish he'd shot the drone before revealing his face if he was gonna do that anyways. You know, the jig was up. More stormtroopers arrive and he seems very ill prepared. Behind them is like some sort of, I don't know what her rank is, but she's clearly above a stormtrooper. She just fires on them out of nowhere, and it turns out that she was the one that was supposed to meet them at the rendezvous point. And is there to help. Her name is Tala, and in this episode I really like this new character. Vader and the Inquisitors have been alerted and are on the way thanks to that Imperial probe that identified him. While they're on their way to their next hiding spot, Tala is explaining how she was actually at the rendezvous point, but Kenobi had already left. And this shows how his lack of faith in people is proving to be a disadvantage. You know, he's far too stuck in the past, and he's letting it not only debilitate his skills, but, you know, his people skills. He's really not good at working with other people or communicating now. Leia expresses how she misses home and feels responsible for getting taken. You know, Obi-Wan tells her it's okay. Tala leads them to their new hiding place, and Leia meets a loading droid who is mute because there's no need for them to communicate. And Leia is understandably saddened by this, because this is just another addition in the long string of depressing droid treatment in Star Wars, which largely goes unaddressed, but the show moved past it, so am I. So Tala explains that they've sort of set up this Jedi underground railroad where they get young Force sensitives, or any Force sensitives really, out of Imperial zones and, out into the Outer Rim, I imagine, or, whatever hiding place that they have. She explains how the Empire is finding Force-sensitive children and they are never heard from again. Most people who are into Rebels and the expanded lore, they know that these children are either turned into Inquisitors or they are killed. So we get a name drop of Quinlan Vos from the Clone Wars, and I thought this was a sweet moment because in the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan is not fond of Quinlan Vos. He's kind of annoyed by him. Even though that's the case, it's a completely different time now. And when Obi-Wan sees his name there, he seems happy. He's like, Quinlan was here? There's that complete attitude change because now, whatever differences there were before, they're one and the same. They've both gone through the same awful struggle, they're family. That was sweet to hear and see. So the troopers search the hut in which Obi-Wan and Leia are hiding. After they leave, Tala's like, okay, we gotta move because they're on to us. Then Leia asks Tala if it's scary to pretend, to which Tala replies, yes, but it's worth it as long as I can help people. This is foreshadowing of Leia's future, pretending to be in league with the Empire while working against it, which we see in Rebels and the original trilogy. Well, barely in the original trilogy, but we definitely see it in Rebels. Tala also explains how she joined the Empire before she really understood what they were, that she's made mistakes and wants to make amends. Right as they're about to leave, Kenobi gets an overwhelming sensation in the Force. He's taken aback. I immediately knew that this meant Vader's arrival, and I really like how much reverence they treat it with, because first you hear his breath, then you see his shadow, his boots, his cape, and then they do a full reveal. And he is just looking around, dragging people through the streets. He murders a woman's family in front of her, brutally, without hesitation, all in an effort to draw Kenobi out. Kenobi sends Leia and Tala away so that they can escape. I watched all of Clone Wars maybe 2 years ago, and finished it off with Revenge of the Sith. And watching all of that, you're sort of inclined to feel positively towards Anakin, until his heel turn. Okay, so people say the true test of someone's character is what they do when no one is watching. And I think you can apply that to Vader. The way Vader acts when there are no restrictions, no repercussions, no Jedi Order or Mace watching what he's doing, no master, he does whatever he has to get what he wants, and it just reveals his deeply selfish nature. That selfishness is taken to the extreme in Revenge of the Sith, when he gets the okay to murder from the Chancellor and just kills everyone, as long as it means he gets to be happy with Padme, which of course didn't happen. In Clone Wars, when he goes searching for Ahsoka, he goes pretty dark there too. Anytime he's able to get his way and he can get away with it, he makes the wrong choice. He really is a bad person. Seeing him walk through the streets like this, while it was badass, it just reinforced that for me. It makes his sacrifice for Luke later on mean that much more, because he finally did the right thing, even though there was nothing in it for him. He had nothing to gain and everything to lose in that situation, and he made the right choice. So good for you for doing that. Still an awful person. Yeah, this is it. The confrontation between the two. Vader finds him, he ignites his lightsaber, and you think Obi-Wan is about to, but then he just runs away. And Vader just stands there, closes his lightsaber. And I love this moment because without saying anything, he says it all. It's him recognizing the new state of affairs. Oh, Obi-Wan is a coward now. Like, this isn't the guy that I faced off against. He is weak. He's looking for him around these piles of dirt. It's very reminiscent of Empire when him and Luke are fighting and there's sort of this cat and mouse thing going on. They finally confront each other. Kenobi's lightsaber is ignited and he asks, I love the music here by the way, but he asks, what have you become? to which Vader says, "I am what you made me." And it's a wonderful exchange, which fans of Revenge of the Sith, like myself, have been waiting for. It was a little unsatisfying watching Revenge of the Sith and then going to A New Hope because of how dramatic and gruesome that last duel was. This feels so much better. I love getting to see Obi-Wan's horror, looking upon what Anakin is now. And Vader's line goes to show that he still doesn't take responsibility for the things he's done, I think. He doesn't take responsibility for this crushingly lonely and sad existence that he now lives. He blames Obi-Wan for what he is, but he was a monster before he put the suit on. Everything else is cosmetic. I love the hatefulness that comes through in Vader's line. "How dare you ask me what I have become? You did this to me." And meanwhile, Reva searches for the girl. Then finally, Obi-Wan and Vader clash. They're fighting, but really, it's not so much a fight as it is Obi-Wan on the back foot, while Vader, one-handedly is beating him down. Leia is like, "Hey, I've spent the last day or few hours with Obi-Wan, and he really doesn't know what he's doing. You should go help him." That's what Tala does. She goes, "Okay, keep going to the ship because I gotta go help him." So this fight, the more I look at it, the more it grows on me, because the first time I saw it, I was like, really? They're fighting here? Just this place that sort of looks like a construction site on Earth, just piles of dirt around them. I think that paired with the new lightsaber lighting makes the Vader scene look odd, and why some people are saying that it feels fan-made. Because, if you look in those original trilogy movies, the lightsabers do not light their environment. I think the reflectivity on Vader's helmet of the lightsabers kind of makes it look like that fan-made Obi-Wan versus Vader thing. A New Hope reimagined. And the fact that we've never seen Vader in an environment like this. But the more I look at it, again, the more my brain accepts it. Overall, I do like this fight. I think it was cool. Wish they would have communicated more with each other, but I'm expecting that there's more of that to come, and I'm expecting that their next duel is going to be much more even. And interesting. This next part is really great, and it's when Vader drags Obi-Wan through the fire. Vader uses the Force to knock over some flammable material, and then he ignites it with his lightsaber, which was a nice touch. And then with the Force, he drags Obi-Wan through the fire. Obi-Wan only has one hand free, just like Anakin on Mustafar, and he's clearly trying to get some poetic revenge on him, and it's very dark. He Force pushes Kenobi away out of the fire and tells the stormtroopers to go get him. It's interrupted by Tala, who kills the stormtrooper who's about to retrieve Kenobi, and then she destroys like this big gas tank, which creates a big wall of fire between Kenobi, Vader, and the stormtroopers. And you see the mute droid from earlier picking up Kenobi. Now, why Vader didn't go to get him, I'm still confused about. I'm wondering whether or not he did it on purpose, whether he let him go on purpose, which just seems implausible to me. He hates him more than anything, and he's been looking for 10 years with no luck. For all he knows, it could be another 10 years. It's strange that he walked away in that moment, but I know they're gonna meet again, so in this show, they're gonna meet again. Not too fussed about it. I'm gonna see where it goes before I fully judge that part of it. Reva, who's been looking for Leia this whole time, intercepts her before she gets on the ship. The pilot is dead anyways, and kidnaps her, and the episode ends. I really enjoyed this. I think since they started telling new Star Wars stories, since The Force Awakens, I have wanted this, and I think a lot of people have. They've wanted Obi-Wan and Vader, and we're finally getting it. Even before that acquisition, I heard that, George Lucas wanted to make a live action show about the 20 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and that Darth Vader would be in it, and stormtroopers and all this stuff, and that was a very exciting idea to me as a kid. And now, years later, it's finally happening. It's finally come true. It's really awesome that Hayden Christensen is back. I think a lot of the Vader we got was him in the suit. If we learn that that is in fact the case, you know, because he did so much training for this role. If that's the case, then he has the physicality down. Like, he's really nailing it and doing a fantastic job. The cast all around, Reva, I really like her line delivery a lot of the time, especially when she is more soft-spoken. Feels like she adds a little something extra to every line she says, and I appreciate it. I'm really excited to see where this goes. Until next time.